When your energy is grounded, purposeful, and regulated, jurors can think, feel, and decide clearly. That's how your message lands, and that's how trust is built. Welcome to the Foster Your Voice podcast with me, Kristi Foster. After a 30-year career in music and theater, I never imagined I'd be coaching trial attorneys. But once I entered your world, I quickly realized how critical and underutilized voice is in the courtroom. The truth is, you don't win trials with brute strength. You win with your voice. I'll give you tools to unlock your voice so you can communicate not just with purpose, but on purpose. If you want quick action tips to help you stay calm and in control, keep jurors engaged, and inspire your listeners to action, all through the power of your voice, you're in the right place. I'm Kristi Foster, and I'm here to help you foster your voice. Hello, Foster fam. Today we're going to be talking about when too much energy undermines your authority, and then how to direct it and harness it to help your courtroom leadership and presence. But first, I want to piggyback on something from a couple of weeks ago when we talked about how to regulate the vibe of the courtroom with breath management, along with how to use breath to regulate our own stress response systems. Go back a couple weeks and listen to episode 55 if you just want a little refresher on that. But when it comes to stress, there's an element of mindfulness and mindset that also needs to be examined. For me, I have sometimes made the distinction between being stressed and being in distress. In my rationale, I've determined that stress is just a fact. Life is busy. There's a lot to be accomplished in a short amount of time. There's a high requirement for management and task prioritization. We all know this happens, and these conditions create a biological stress response. It doesn't mean I'm in distress, though. I can recognize that the situation is stressful while still knowing that I'm in full control. I have energy and focus for the tasks. I just need to eliminate distractions. I'm not crumbling under pressure. I'm simply stressed, but I'm in no way distressed. Do you understand that difference? I also really appreciate Ellen Langer's framing of stress that she shared on the Rich Roll podcast. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Rich Roll is an endurance athlete, a wellness advocate, an author, and an acclaimed podcast host. Ellen Langer is commonly known as the mother of mindfulness, particularly due to her significant work in positive psychology. She's a professor of psychology at Harvard, where she studies the illusion of control, decision-making, aging, and mindfulness theory. So I happened upon an excerpt where she was talking about stress on the Rich Roll podcast. And the reason her work stood out to me is because she doesn't treat stress as a thing that happens to us, but as something shaped by how we interpret what's happening. She describes stress as two linked beliefs. First, that something bad is going to happen. And second, that when it does, it's going to be awful. She says to attack it on both fronts. First, she suggests that you give yourself 3 to 5 reasons why it might not happen. And changing you from being single-minded, this will definitely happen, to a more open possibility that it might not happen, immediately brings down the stress level. But then, to the second point, she says to consider, if it does actually happen, how can that be an advantage? She reminds us that events don't cause stress. The outcomes of events are a function of our thoughts about them. Essentially, our thoughts create feelings, and those feelings create actions that lead to a particular result. I've created a free guide that might be helpful for you as we explore this idea. I call it the CLEAR framework. Others call it think, feel, act, or think, feel, do. And Ellen Langer says the outcome of events are a function of our thoughts about them. Now, in the CLEAR framework, again, not something that I made up, I just simply synthesized it into a memorable package. But the concepts have been around for ages. But CLEAR stands for circumstance, C, lens, these are your thoughts about the circumstance, emotion, CLE, what you feel about your thoughts, action, and results, CLEAR, CLEAR, the CLEAR framework. I really wish I had known earlier, or wish I could go back and tell my younger self that you don't have to believe every thought you have. Thoughts just pop up unintentionally. That doesn't make them true. And let me just say that this isn't about toxic positivity or pretending things aren't hard. It's about accuracy and it's about choice. We get to examine them and then decide if it is true, what do I want to feel about it? Knowing that what I feel about it will cause me to act in a certain way, which will lead to a particular result. If the thought isn't true, then I get to decide what new thought actually does represent reality more or will serve me better in this situation. I've put the link to the ritual interview in the show notes, but I also encourage you to pick up the free download of the CLEAR framework and keep challenging your own thinking, especially if you are not getting the results in your life that you know you want. Hey, real quick, if your jurors look confused when you say liability, standard of care, or damages, they're not tuning out because they don't care. They're tuning out because they don't speak law. I've put together a free guide called Top 20 Legal Terms to Avoid and What to Say Instead. It'll help you simplify your language without losing credibility, so your message actually lands. Download it now at fostervoicestudio.com/top20 or click the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. Question for you. Have you ever sat next to someone, anyone, your spouse, your client, someone on your team, and they bounce their knee? It just I'm sure we have all been around someone that does this. So the question is, how does it make you feel? And before you answer, this has everything to do with courtroom communication. For me, that type of motion, it just riles me up. It increases any anxious feelings I might be experiencing, and it stresses me out. And I usually just reach over and gently just touch the knee. By all intents and purposes, it really has nothing to do with me. It's an action they are doing with their body. What does it have to do with me at all? Well, it's a fascinating thing that someone else's frenetic energy, that's energy that's just bubbling over, that doesn't have any direction, that's just looking for some place to go, that their frenetic energy can impact someone else. But that is the truth of it. If you, as an attorney, bring too much frenetic energy into the courtroom, it can significantly impair a jury's ability to learn, making the information harder to process. And then the experience becomes more overwhelming than it needs to be, the exact opposite of what you want for your jurors. So first, let's talk about energy in general. We want to be energetic in the courtroom. You've heard me talk about this before, about how important it is to be generous with your energy in order to provide sufficient mirroring of expression that gives the jury permission to feel for your client or even just the circumstances of their story. So I'm not talking about strategic, purposeful, expressive energy. That kind of energy is essential. It's part of how jurors connect and how they care. I'm talking about energy that creates excessive or uncontrolled movement or hyperactivity. This is that knee bouncing or that on and off of a pen, or what I think mostly goes unchecked, mindlessly shifting your weight back and forth while presenting, either side to side or front and back. It's body movement that has no purpose. Most of the time, it's just excess nervous energy looking for an outlet. It's unbridled energy that is not being directed. So it just is. So, what does unbridled frenetic energy do? For most of us, when we experience it in others, we're largely unaware of its effect on us. We're just more agitated for no apparent reason, or we feel the need to stretch or walk or take deep sighs. What we're not able to do is pay attention and stay engaged. This type of energy distracts from the core content, diverting the brain's focus from absorbing information to just managing sensory input. So let's break it down a bit more and talk about how frenetic energy impacts learning. First, and probably the most obvious, it's distracting. Constant erratic movement, swaying, or we can even extend this to talking too fast, pulls attention away from your words and forces their brain to work harder to filter out the noise. All that extra noise creates sensory input. Loud sounds, fast pace, busy gestures. That all overloads working memory, making it difficult to process and store new information. You're essentially creating cognitive overload, and your jury is going to have to just tap out at some point. An overly intense or erratic speaker can create a stressful environment, even for the most neuroregulated jurors. But how much more so for those that struggle with anxiety or have learning difficulties? And again, it's not just about how you use your body, but your voice can be a culprit too. A voice that is too loud or too fast can make words run together. Your clarity of speech decreases, and that reduced intelligibility leads to reduced comprehension. They're not going to be able to track with you because they can't understand you. It's simple as that. And you run the risk of coming across as overly dramatic or maybe angry or even too much to handle. You don't want the jury to have to handle you. You want them being able to learn from you, to trust you. So you've got to keep your energy in check and find that balance. The goal is energetic and engaging, not hyperactive, not frantic. Authority lives in regulation, not intensity. Breathe. Keep an overall moderate pace with your speech, being able to vary for strategic expression, and make sure your gestures are controlled and purposeful. If you find yourself moving around because you just don't know what else to do, pause, breathe, return your body to grounded posture, and return your hands to a neutral, at ready position. And try bringing your awareness to the space. Read the room. Think about what you do when you're overwhelmed. You probably withdraw, you turn your body away from the source of that energy when it's too strong. Your jury will do the same if you're the source of too much energy or too intense of energy. That's your cue to just ratchet down. Remember, they're wanting natural, authentic enthusiasm. A presence that seems artificial or an over-the-top performance not only looks unnatural, but it will be distracting. It will cause stress and just make your message harder to process to understand, and to retain. Your job in the courtroom isn't to flood the room with energy, it's to channel it. When your energy is grounded, purposeful, and regulated, jurors can think, feel, and decide clearly. That's how your message lands, and that's how trust is built. Until next time, keep fostering your voice. Thanks for pulling up a seat with me today and for being part of the Foster fam. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a review or a comment so I can give you a shout out on a future episode. During the week, you can find me on Instagram at Foster Voice Studio, where I'm dropping little nuggets of vocal technique and leadership wisdom. You can also join my mailing list by visiting fostervoicestudio.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. I'll send a weekly vocal tip every Tuesday directly to your inbox. Until then, keep fostering your voice.